Hey, how's it going, guys? This is Al Johnson with Talking Film and Trash. And today's episode is going to be on the cult classic Scarface, starring Al Pacino and directed by Brian De Palma. And it's about Tony Montana, played by Al Pacino, and how he arrives in Miami during I guess, the cocaine boom of the 1980s in Miami. And uh, he goes from this nobody immigrant, and he turns his whole life around, becomes like top of drug, the drug world, becomes a kingpin. And he gets everything he ever wanted, but then once he gets what he wants, he has his fall, and his fall is induced by his megalomania, his paranoia, and he ends up isolating and alienating himself and all those around him. But this scene, in the beginning, is super interesting because we basically have Tony Montana sitting there in an interrogation office uh, around one of the checkpoints in Miami, where you got the government guys interviewing all the immigrants and making sure that they pass the background checks and all that in order to get into the United States. Uh, and you got Tony Montana here being interrogated by these guys, and the scene is so masterfully done for a few reasons. First off, the filmmakers use a rotating camera to establish a shot here in this scene. And it's a very creative touch because the rotating camera uh, shows you, the different sides of Tony's face and the back of his head. It's as if the filmmakers, they want you to know this character, Tony Montana, very intimately, like you know like the back of your own hand. This scene is also brilliant because it shows you just how well Tony lies. Uh, we can tell that he's a smooth talker and he's very charismatic. And he plays the whole "I'm a political prisoner from Castro's Cuba" pretty well. And I mean, the cops know he's lying, and and they know that through a few things, which I'm gonna get to later on. But uh, it does tell us, the audience, that he's very charismatic, he's very likable, but there is a different side to him, and he can't lie when he needs to, and he can think on his feet. So he's very cunning, or he has a lot of low cunning, whichever you prefer. Because of the rotating camera, you get a sense that this scene matters, and the rotating camera is actually also a nice touch because it visually communicates the rising tension. Uh, and you also get a sense that if a bad showing here for Tony could lead to him not getting his green card and entering the United States, which is what the dialogue also communicates to you later on in the scene. At the beginning of the interrogation, the tension is apparent because the cops immediately question Tony to see if he could speak English. And when Tony answers in the affirmative and also gives a very, I guess, snide remark, they immediately pounce on him. Themes of masculinity is woven all throughout of the film, and they are firmly established in this beginning scene. Listen to the cops when they ask Tony where he got that scar from, and they immediately attack his pridefulness, his manliness, and one of them, he asks him if he got it eating pussy, and there were other questions about if he's a homosexual and if he likes to dress up, wear women's dresses, and you can see Tony is visibly uncomfortable, like he has a tell when they ask him this. He scratches his head, and I think that just it's beautifully done, especially in this establishing scene because we don't know exactly what to expect, and yet the film is already giving us heavy themes to work with for the remainder, 2.5 hours. Another tell is when the cops ask Tony about his criminal history. You can see that he shifts in his chair, which is also a very nice touch, and it leads to the climax of this scene, actually. The climax, which is probably the most brilliant part of this entire scene, is when finally the lead investigator, the lead cop or whatever, he takes a look at Tony's scar, and immediately the camera stops rotating. Stops rotating. That is a very nice touch, and it's very advanced in terms of communicating that visual attention and how we know as the audience this is where the cops have them. And they follow that up with a close up of Tony's tattoo on his right hand, which is of the heart and the pitchfork. And that right there is also a break within the tension to display that Tony has lost his battle. He's been found out. And of course, that leads to the end of the scene where we see Tony arguing back and forth with the police and him desperately trying to explain his case as to why he should get into the United States. But as displayed with the stoppage of the rotating of the camera and the close up, which is visually a different route the scene is taking, we can tell that this battle for Tony Montana is over and he will not be entering the United States. So here's some cool things about the visuals. I totally love the blandness of the colors in the room. You have a lot of whites, you have a lot of grays, you have the windows, but on the other side of the windows, you can't really see, what's going on out there. But all of this translates the blindness and the bureaucratic nature of the U.S. government. I think that's a very nice touch for an opening scene. But one of the best visuals we get, or possibly the best visual of the entire scene, is towards the end, we get the two cops in the frame, and we see the portrait of Jimmy Carter above the head of the lead investigator, and the American flag on the other side of, the co-investigator. And it's a nice touch because both of these pictures or both of these items represent the different ideologies of America at the time and further establish the theme of America and capitalism versus communism and what, we try to get that message out to the world. But the Jimmy Carter portrait is significant because the lead investigator, he doesn't want to hear any of Tony's shit. He already knows he's full of it. And that translates into what Carter was feeling at the time. Carter, as you know, he was a pretty weak president. And Castro sending all the Cubans over by boat. He emptied all of the entire dregs of his entire prison and sent them over to the United States, which is a total middle finger to Carter at the time. And it's one of Carter's biggest failures that he once again has been manipulated and tricked on the world stage. So the lead investigator represents Carter's frustration himself. And the other cop, the co-investigator standing in front of the American flag, he represents the more liberal side of America, the fundamental ideology that, anyone could come here and if they just work hard, they can make it. Just, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And so that's why he's more lenient to Tony getting a green card, because he sympathizes with the horrors of communism. But that's an awesome shot, and it translates so much because you have those two arguments. The realistic, oh man, we just got fucked over by Castro, and now we're gonna have to deal with the consequences, whatever they may be, as opposed to, well, what if we just give them a chance and see what happens? I think, you know, for an opening scene, to have that visual there, to have that touch there, and to have all those arguments in just 10 seconds of the film, like that displays just how big of a master Brian De Palma really is. And it leads to Tony's other misadventures in the film, and that theme of capitalism versus communism, and the flaws of capitalism and the flaws of communism are totally interwoven into the entire film. And this is a great opening statement about those contrasting ideologies. So before I leave you guys, here's an interesting tidbit about the making of the film Scarface. And it comes from the screenwriter Oliver Stone, who in his own right is a pretty accomplished filmmaker himself. But did you know that Oliver Stone actually wrote Scarface while he was sobering up from a cocaine addiction? Yeah, it's true. And I guess you can see that throughout the film too, that there is an intense hatred for the drug, but a lot of strong political commentary and social commentary on that drug world in general. It's like it's been made with a vengeance. In the interview, Oliver Stone is quoted as saying, "I was a cocaine addict for about 2.5 years prior to writing Scarface. I knew that world, the drug world of the early 1980s, very well. Cocaine had screwed me so much. It had taken so much of my money that now I needed to take my revenge, and so I wrote Scarface. In the past, I've talked about Scarface as being a farewell love letter to cocaine, but it's really me taking my revenge on the drug." Me personally, I totally believe that. Like I said, a lot of political commentary about the drug, a lot of political and social commentary about the drug boom of the 1980s, and this idea and culture of excess and invincibility that people displayed at the time. So, a final thought on Scarface. One of the greatest gangster films ever made. One of the greatest films of the 1980s in general. It will never be forgotten. So much of it is quotable. So many memorable characters and memorable scenes. I just wish that we could start making films like that again, and tap into that creative animus that I know this country is still capable of producing. But Scarface will live on to the test of time, and hopefully in the future, we will see more of it, or more films like it. Not so much films about the drug trade or anything like that, but just creative films that forces you to look at things in a new lens or in a new way. So I hope you guys enjoyed this scene from Scarface. Hope you learned something new. And, catch you guys on the flip side. See ya.